Today we're going to talk about credit cards and budgeting and ask the question, can credit cards go hand in hand with budgeting, and can credit cards be beneficial? So not long after we got married, we decided to budget, make categories, decide how much we want to spend in each category every month. And we have both failed and succeeded at that. It's been kind of up and down, a learning process. It's one of those things you kind of feel what works for you and what doesn't. However, this past year we've been terrible at budgeting. We had this whole house renovation. There's lots of things going on, lots of stress. We were buying takeout, food was being ordered in, and just everything was completely wonky. And we are finally now getting back to a place where we're like, okay, we need to sit down, we need to get our budget more in line. And so in this video, I'm gonna be sharing our plan. We're just starting this again. We adapted some of the principles from Jordan Page. I found her video very interesting, and while she was very detailed with her percentages and everything, I'm just going to give you a rough overview of our plan. So we have been basically doing this in more of a broader sense, but we're trying to niche it down and get a little bit more of a tighter handle on things, especially after this past year. I'm really excited to share this with you, and you guys are probably gonna think some of these things sound really crazy. Like, first off, how can you use a credit card when you're budgeting? Second off, why would you open, say, 7 bank accounts? But let's jump into it. I wanna start off talking about credit cards. Now, a lot of people follow Dave Ramsey, which he's a huge proponent of cash only, no cards. I mean, his basically whole brand is about cutting up your credit cards and throwing them away. I definitely think this is a wise move. However, for us, we feel like we benefit better doing credit cards and budgeting, and we're going to show you how. Now, this topic can stir up some people's emotions. I had talked a little bit in one of my previous videos about a credit card that we had signed up for that was giving us $800 in cash back simply for signing up, which was insane. People were basically telling me this is a hoax, you're gonna get in big trouble, you don't know what you're doing, and that type of thing. However, that's not the case, because we have been actually doing this type of thing for many years, and we've kind of gotten to know the whole credit card market, point systems, everything, and you can seriously use credit cards to your advantage if you are wise. I haven't always been wise, for sure, I'm not saying I am. But you have to be careful and you have to understand yourself and your temptations. So the first thing I want to say, if you want to use credit cards, you have to use them as a debit card. In your mind, you never spend money you don't have. It's not a credit card in the sense that you use a card to buy something you can't afford and then later try to pay it back on payments. You have to be able to afford everything you buy and also keep it within your budget, and then make sure you can pay that off every month on time. Because if you do not pay your credit cards off on time, that's where the credit card companies get you with extremely high interest rates, and you will dig yourself into a hole that is very hard to get out of. That's why Dave Ramsey is so against credit cards, is because credit card debt has been an awful thing for many, many people. However, if you understand that up front, and if you know that you're the type of person that will not give in to the temptation, to us it's not even an option. We don't use a card and spend for things we can't afford. We simply buy the things that we know we can afford, the things that we need, and in return we are getting points back that we can use for future purchases. I would definitely recommend keeping your usable cards down to like 1, 2, possibly 3, because once you have too many credit cards, it's not a good idea. You don't want to be trying to keep track of them all unless they each specifically have different categories, if that helps you out. We have done a mild version of what's called credit card churning, if you want to look it up. Some people will actually take advantage of credit card companies' offers, and often when you sign up with a new credit card, they will offer a bonus. Say, if you spend $500, you get $200 back. It's a really good offer. We've done that a few times with credit cards. And a lot of these cards actually don't have an annual fee. So now and then we might do that if we're diving into a project. We're like, you know what? We could save $200 here. We sign up for this card, put what we're already spending on the card, pay it off, and then we use that money towards the purchase. And then often we'll take that card and just let it sit and no longer use it. You don't want to do this too often because it hurts your credit score. It'll give little ticks in your credit. But if you do it wisely and over time, it can really be to your advantage. One that I have recently done is the Chase Sapphire. I talked about it in a previous video. I went on the website to check and see if their offer is still up, and it actually went up And I'm so jealous because before it was 800,000 points, which translates to $800 back that you can use either towards your purchases, like pay off your credit card, or you can use it towards travel. And if you use those points towards travel, you actually get 25% more. But right now, the offer is 100,000 points. So you would actually be getting $1,000 back from your points that you could put towards your credit card purchases. So the requirements for that is to spend $4,000 in, I think it's 3 months time, or maybe it's 6 months. You might have to go check that out for sure. And then you will get the $1,000 back. Or if you spend it on travel, like hotels, flights, that type of thing, through their card, it actually is 25% more. So it'd actually be a total of $1,250, which is insane. I have hardly ever seen deals like this. So yeah, we had signed up for it. Some people were telling me, you're crazy, this is not going to work, but it did work. We actually bought tickets. We are going to Alaska for a family vacation. So excited. And just using points on credit cards, different things, we have most of our vacation paid. It's just amazing. So people often look at these trips that some people take and they think, how can they do that? How can they must have lots of money. But my good friend Rocky, actually, she has a YouTube channel as well, Raquel Whitmer. Her and I are actually very passionate about this topic, and we both are big on budget traveling, and we have learned how to travel, take flights around the world, and do it on a budget where it's actually not costing us that much money. And credit cards has been a big one for us. So basically, you need to have a good credit score for this card. I'll have links below if you want to go check out the offer. There is a $95 annual fee, which means that you'll have to pay that, which will come out of those total. But then what we plan to do is, since it's not our main card, we will probably cancel it after using it for a year, just because we don't want to maintain it. We have another card that we prefer. However, it's an amazing sign-up bonus. You can use it for a while for that year, get your reward points back, and then canceling it will hurt your score some. So it's kind of up to you, you know, what you want. If you want to hurt it a little bit and then work at getting it back up again over the next 6 months. It all depends what's valuable to you. Another thing we have done in the past with credit cards, this one, make sure you're careful with, because debt is never a good thing. We're trying to be completely debt-free. We've got all our vehicles paid off. Now we're trying to get our house paid off. But as far as some business opportunities, when I got into photography, back when we were first married, like seriously, we lived paycheck to paycheck pretty much. And then later, also when I got sick, it was just, I tell you what, this is going off subject now, but Nolan would work his tail off to like support me, to support the meds we had to pay. Like, we don't have insurance, or we didn't back then. We have like Christian healthcare right now, which helps with major medical, but they don't help with like the small things. So like all my meds, like I think it was like $500 a month on meds. And then there was a host of other things that came up to about $800 to $1,000 a month. And we were just so, yeah, it was crazy. And I was feeling so bad. I had all these doctor's appointments and testing, and it was just $300 here, $500 there, $1,000 there, $3,000. After a while, you just are just like, how can we even survive with this? And so I'm so glad we're not in that place anymore, but I know what it's like to be there. Anyway, why was it going down that topic? Oh, back what I was trying to say is back to the credit cards. I had wanted to get into photography, and I had a camera that Nolan had bought for me for our engagement gift. It was a Canon T3i, and I was starting to get into weddings, and it just wasn't cutting it for low light, and I really wanted to invest into professional equipment, and doing that was going to be quite a few $1,000s. And I just remember Nolan agreed to it. There was a credit card that allowed you to have 0% interest for a whole year, or it was a year and a half, and we were pretty sure we could have it paid off by then. So what I would do is I have done this different times for different business ventures, by the way. It's basically like borrowing free money with no interest, but you have to be sure that you're confident you can pay it back. So what I would do, I won't be showing my credit cards, I'm scared of giving my information, but I would take the credit card and then take a little slip of paper and tape it on the outside and write the date that I would have to have that balance paid off by. Every month you would pay the minimum balance. They would charge you no fees for that. But then if you happen to be even one day late when your year ran out or your year and a half, they would back charge you all the taxes you missed. or the percentage rate, I should say, not taxes. But they would back charge you, and that would be extremely expensive. So I would make sure to be in plenty of time, and I would do like the month before or the month that it ran out, and to make sure that that credit card was paid off by then. And that's how I would know. I would flip through my book, see the little tag. That's how I stayed organized. Anyway, by doing that, I was able to jumpstart my photography business, get into weddings, and it was a really, really good experience. And that was one of the benefits of using 0% APR. And we've done it again with an Amazon business when we were doing inventory, trying to get things started. That one was a little bit riskier, but we decided to go ahead and try it, and it worked out well. But it was a nice way to be able to do some business investments at 0% cost. We didn't have to pay an interest fee for that money. So that was another way we've used credit cards. All right, so we always liked Dave Ramsey's method, but we also liked credit cards, and we were trying to mesh the two. When I ran across Jordan Page's video, I was completely fascinated. Her advice was to open 7 bank accounts. I know it sounds insane. I think hers was 7. She said they had more because of business. And then she also was saying, make sure to shop around and check to see if there's any offers as well from your local banks. Often they will offer you an incentive to open a bank account. All right, I'll tell you more why the multiple bank accounts. However, her advice as far as opening new bank accounts was to just shop around and see who is offering the most to open a bank account. However, for me, it's a headache to bank at multiple banks. Obviously, I want all my things in one bank. So we decided to open up more bank accounts and copy her style. So started applying for these bank accounts, and we opened up a bunch of them. We had a fair amount before, but we opened up a bunch more, and I'm gonna show you our different bank accounts and why we did that. Now, we do have businesses, so I think we have a total between bank accounts and savings accounts. I think we have a total of like 15. And that sounds insane, I know. We used to not have this many. I'm not gonna be direct and say you have to have, 5 or 6 or 7. Jordan Page has a bunch of recommendations if you wanna check out her video. Her recommendation, I think, was 7 or 9. And she had specific categories that some of them didn't really fit in with ours. So we went ahead and did our own, and I'm just gonna go over and share with you. With Dave Ramsey, he recommends having envelopes of cash. And each month you divvy out your paycheck, you have your groceries, maybe you have your clothing, whatever categories you need, and then you spend out of that envelope. We tried cash in a sense, and we didn't really enjoy it. We were still trying to use it with a credit card. It was kind of a mess. We decided, nah. But when we heard this idea of multiple bank accounts, we love it. You take the total of your paycheck, and as your paycheck grows or diminishes, you always use a certain percentage if possible, where you do your tithing, if that's something that you do. You have, of course, all your expenses, your family expenses, your house expenses, and all these different things, and you divvy it up, and then maybe the remainder, then you try to do 10, 20, 30% that goes into savings or whatever. And it depends where you are in life. Sometimes you are just simply, like I had said before, for us, living paycheck to paycheck and hardly even having enough to cover that. So you obviously hardly have anything to put into savings, but it's something to work towards. So don't judge us. Some people say that you don't have a good marriage if you don't have the same bank account. We don't feel that way because they're all linked together. We can transfer money between them all. However, it's much easier for us to keep track of our finances when the money that Nolan earns goes into his bank account, and the money that I earn, say from YouTube, from the different businesses that we manage, goes into my account, and then from there we divvy it out to the other accounts. So we have an account for Nolan and an account for myself. So those are the 2 main accounts. So then another thing that Dave Ramsey definitely recommends is having an emergency fund. And that's what we're trying to do, is build that up so that we have, say, possibly 3 months of savings saved up in case something would happen that our income completely stops, so that we have at least 3 months covered, 6 months if possible. But it's good to have that pocket, that safety net, so that when things go bad, there's no income, that you still have enough money to live for a few months, covering all your bills and expenses. That would be the 3rd account, which is a savings account. We call it emergency savings. Now, the plan with that savings account is that we get it to a certain level, and then if something ever comes up that's an emergency, like a major emergency that isn't really included in all of our other planning per month, we could dip into that, use it, And then once again, after that emergency is over, work at building up the emergency fund back up to the 3-month level. We also have a medical savings, which is kind of similar, but there's often medical emergencies, and we want that separate from like the 3 months of living expenses. So the medical emergencies, you kind of have to figure out how much you think you would need, as you have families. Try to figure what would be kind of feel safe for you, whether it's a few thousand, because things like dental can quickly happen. Someone breaks a tooth. Dental can be so expensive. Very quickly you can be over $1,000 in dental. And with my health conditions and whatever, it's just good to have a safety net. And then thirdly is we weren't sure if we were going to add this one, but we decided to, is vehicles and what we think it costs to maintain vehicles. If you suddenly need new tires, maybe a vehicle breaks down, it often happens, you have to go to the mechanic. So we'd like to have a vehicle savings set aside where we can have a cushion in there, and as soon as something happens, we just dip into that. Now, a couple of the extra accounts, like I said, we have a lot. A lot of people get their taxes taken out of their paycheck. We do not, and since we own businesses, we need to pay income tax. So we have an income tax savings because we try to pay quarterly. So every time our paychecks come in or we get money in, we take the percentage out that goes to Uncle Sam and dump it into that account. And then we also have a sales tax account because we sell some things where we're required to charge sales tax. And so anytime we sell that, to keep everything straight, because it's a headache if you don't do that. If I charge $100 in sales tax and it goes into my income and I don't keep it all separate, it's a headache. So whatever we charge the people for the state, that goes into that bank account. So that's kind of why we have a few extra. And 2 other accounts are for businesses. So that kind of takes care of 4 of our accounts that aren't really relevant here unless you own a business. All right, so we split up into the following categories. We have house and clothes in one bank account. So the plan for that account is for any house expenses, if we suddenly need more light bulbs or a whole bunch, just the little things that I had been kind of taking out of my grocery, and it was being a little bit of catastrophe because suddenly I needed all these extra things and it's taking out of my grocery budget. So we have it separate for that, and then we're also including clothes in that, and that can really fluctuate as well. Sometimes I go 2 or 3 months without buying any new clothes, and suddenly we need a whole bunch of new clothes for myself, for Xander, he's growing quickly. And if we each month take a percentage of our income and put it into that account, then suddenly we have a cushion. So when we need to go and shopping for clothes or whatever, we can just dig into that account and know that that's exactly what that account is for. We also have an account for the farm here separately. Obviously we have animals, different vet expenses, just the type of thing, maintenance of lawn mowers, just odds and ends of stuff that is basically farm and shop related go into that account. And then we also have what we call our charity account for money that we give away. And then the last 2 accounts, the one is I call it my fun savings. So if there's any little bit of extra money here and there that you don't know what to do with, you can just dump it in there. If maybe I've earned something a little extra and I think, hey, this would be fun to put into my fun savings, and then that can kind of accumulate and you can go buy something that you normally would feel a little bit like you shouldn't buy, like maybe upgrading camera gear like I tend to like to, or if it's taking a trip with the family, that type of thing. So that's just kind of your odds and ends of extra money that goes into that account. And then last of all, we actually have a credit card account designated to paying off credit cards. And this is one of the things that I really like. So at the end of the month, or even sometimes throughout the month, I'll sit down and we'll go over, and basically you balance out your credit card statement, sort of like you would do with a bank account. You make sure that every purchase is acquired for, that you know what you spent, that there's no extra spending you weren't planning on, or maybe someone has got a hold of your card and there's fraud on the account. So we make sure every month we both go over the credit card statement and make sure we know where all the money went. Throughout the month, I will go down through, and things that I've spent, I will transfer that money from whatever bank account it needs to be transferred to and transfer it over to the credit card account. And then I'll tick it off on the credit card statement saying that this one is paid and I have transferred it over to be paid at the end of the month towards the credit card. Does that make sense? So let's just say I have a $500 expense towards a business purchase, and it's on my credit card statement, and I'll actually have a little notebook and I'll write everything down that I've spent. And then beside the expense, let's say the $500 expense, I will record it in my notepad, and then I'll put a check mark beside it to indicate that I have transferred money into the credit card account. And that check mark implies that I basically paid it. I haven't yet. And then when it's time to come and pay the whole credit card, we just take the money out of the credit card account and pay the credit card. I hope I made sense there. Back to meshing the two now, credit cards and budgeting. So I got this idea from Jordan Page. You can buy these cute little cash envelopes off of Amazon, or you can just honestly get your own. You don't have to have anything fancy. Just go get little envelopes and write on them yourself. So with whatever category you have, you need to figure out how much you spend each month on groceries, what you plan to stay within, and then divide that by weeks. Don't try to regulate it for a whole month. It's much easier if you do it in bite-sized chunks per week. If your grocery budget is $400 a month, then you would have $100 per week generally for most months to spend. So on your cash envelope, you'd write your category, then you write the month on it, and then on the back, you have your dates and how much you spent. And so then instead of taking cash along, when you go grocery shopping, you just take your envelope, and when you get to the purchase, you have your total amount on the top, and then you just subtract what you purchased, and then you have your remaining balance for that week. And then you can also put your receipt into the envelope and save your receipt to come home when you go through and do all your records. So I would recommend doing that, especially with your main spending accounts. Some of these accounts or categories I actually won't spend in every month. It might be every other month. So I wouldn't be carrying around tons of envelopes for every category, but your main spending categories, take envelopes along. Make sure you think consciously about everything you're spending. And one of her main tips as well was don't cross over into next week. Don't borrow money from another week. And I've been bad at doing that. Like, oh, okay, I can go over, $50 or $20 this week, and I'll pull it from next week, and I'll just pull my belt tighter next week. And then next week comes and you're short 20, and maybe you borrow another 5 from the following week, and suddenly you're down to below your budget or overblowing your budget. I'm not trying to paint it like this is somehow magical. This definitely would work better if you had cash and you got to the end of your grocery shopping and you have your $5 short. The temptation, and it often does happen, is to just swipe your card and say, what's $5? Whereas if you only have cash, obviously you can't pay because you have no credit card. So I do see that downside of credit cards, but if you try to do your best to stay tightly within your budgets, you can both budget and still gain all the benefits of using a credit card. And for us, those benefits are traveling the world. Hopefully we can do that again with the whole COVID thing, and just other things. Sometimes when we get into a project, using that money towards that project or whatever. So yeah, I hope that helped. I just kind of gave a rough draft. Some people are a lot more detailed in exactly how to do that. I didn't give you really any percentages. I think that's up to each family. And I don't enjoy budgeting per se because it's a real headache. I've been in a bad habit now for the past year, just going grocery shopping and getting what I need. Instead of calculating everything. I was so used to hey, this is $4, this is $3.25, okay, I'm at $7.25, taking your calculator along, calculating everything. It takes so much more time to make sure you're staying within budget. But one thing that does help is to pre-plan your meals and have a specific list of groceries for the week. It's another thing that is amazing if you can get it accomplished. I try to do it again and again, and then I fail and don't do it for a while. It just takes commitment and discipline. Anyway, so that's kind of how we roll. We're human. We make a lot of mistakes in it. This is not like a perfect system that we always have mastered. We do go over budget, especially this last year has been a catastrophe with it all. But we're going to try to tighten down and see if we can't master this a little bit better. Make sure that we're telling our money where to go instead of having it just escape from us. If you found this video helpful, I'd love a thumbs up. And once again, make sure to go check out that credit card offer if you'd like to check it out. I'm not sponsored by them, by the way, but if you do go through that link, we do get a little bit of a kickback in points. just for a few signups. But anyway, we really enjoyed using the card, and I think it's amazing, and I would recommend anyone use it that knows they're responsible with credit cards. Nice chatting with you guys. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.